Hello and welcome back to the Mafia Scum Modern Super League. We have one match for you right now, which is going to be Kdowns versus SensFan, and I'm here with my co-commentator for this match, Yaw.
Hello. So we are going to be seeing SensFan against Kdowns now. That is a Merfolk deck against a green-red Tron. So looking at the deck list here, first we have this Merfolk deck that SensFan is piloting. What do you think about what's going on here?
So this is a very aggressive creature-based deck. The goal is to play Merfolk and make them bigger with Lord of Atlantis and Master of the Pearl Trident. Um, it has some tricky ways to get Merfolk in with Ether Vial and Harbinger of the Tides as Flash as well, which can sneak up on people sometimes. There's also a bit of disruption in the form of Vapor Snag and Spreading Seas to hopefully keep your opponent off of their plan long enough for you to just run them over with Merfolk.
Yeah, this is maybe the slowest aggro deck in the format, you might say. But I remember playing Merfolk when it was standard and when it was Lorwyn block. And you could just go, turn one Curse Catcher, turn two Lord, turn three Lord, and suddenly you're, even in standard, with a slightly worse creature package, you were suddenly attacking for 9 a turn and mowing people down turn 4. So really the strength of this tends to be going wide, and all of these lords that just make things bigger. Turning over to this Tron list, this is green red, and I know people have been experimenting around a little bit with different things to work with the green. What do you see here in this deck? What does the red have to offer here, and what is this trying to do?
Well, the red is actually going to help out quite a bit in this matchup because the red here gives you Pyroclasm, which is a 2 damage sweeper, and if the merfolk stay small and there aren't too many lords running around, it can just get rid of all the creatures running around.
Yeah, so how do you think this plays out, this matchup?
It's going to depend a lot on how fast the merfolk player's start is. If they get out a wide board and a fast clock with a little bit of disruption, spreading seas for a Tron land to slow down Kdowns' ramp a bit, it's going to be hard for Kdowns to get back into it because he needs a sweeper, and his only one that he can get out very quickly is Pyroclasm, and that only hits if you've got one lord at most. Once you've got two lords, everything gets up to 3 toughness, and then you can't get rid of them. But if there's no disruption for the Tron pieces, you can find Wormcoil Engine to block and gain some life, attack back and gain some life, and start to get out of range. And if you're even slower, the Oblivion Stones and Ugins can just take care of all the threats, and it's going to be really hard for Sens to get back into it after that.
Right, of course, assuming everything doesn't become unblockable for spreading seas reasons. So we are going to head down, but there might be an issue. We're just trying to figure out if everyone's still connected.
Yes. As we wait for that, are there any pre-match thoughts on the sideboards and if the matchup will change there?
Seems like we might be connected. Hold on one second. All right, so they're going to draw up very quickly. Uh, Looking at what we have here, there isn't really a lot for this matchup. If we look at what Tron is dealing with here, there just isn't much there that matters. Torpor Orb maybe for some that comes into play effects, but that's not really how Merfolk wins. And a lot of this stuff doesn't really matter. Maybe some Thrag Tusks to gain some life and some time, but those are a little slow. There isn't a lot on the Merfolk side either. There's a bunch of Merfolk decks that have been packing extra land destruction for matchups like this, either four seas claims in the sideboard just to mess around with more lands, or in the deck that just made it to the finals of the Grand Prix last weekend, there were four tectonic edges. Some decks have ghost quarters, these sorts of things to give some extra possibilities to mess with lands. There's none of that here. There's a couple counter spells that might help a little bit, just stop the first threat and then run them over, but that's about it. Sideboarding should be pretty minimal.
Yeah, one thing that Merfolk isn't running here that I often see is a negate, and that would help a lot with the threats that Merfolk cares about. But as is, they're probably going to keep things pretty much the same.
Yeah, so they're drawing up, and we have first hand so far. What do you think of this Merfolk hand?
One land is tough to keep. Um, if you find a second one, you're off to the races with Silvergill Adepts and a Lord, but without an Ether Vial, all you can play out of this hand is a Curse Catcher, and you have to hope you're going to find action after that. And that's a little too risky for me.
Yeah, it's tempting. I mean, if there's a one land hand that's tempting, this is it. But there's kind of two dead cards here. The Vapor Snake doesn't really do much. If the first threat that they have is a Karn, for example, is just dead. And the Master Waves is kind of slow. So this one might be getting shipped back, yeah.
I mean, again, it has potential, but
So the other side here, okay, here we go. So here's our hand from Tron. What do you make of this?
well, the top end is an Ulamog, which is the slowest top end for the matchup, and probably won't get things done fast enough. But you've got an Ancient Stirrings and an Expedition map to find more lands or get to other threats like Karn or Ugin. And you've got a Pyroclasm as an early board clear, along with mana to cast it and the Stirrings with Grove of the Burn Willows and Chromatic Sphere. So I really like it in this matchup. It seems like a solid hand, although you're going to need to find a threat.
Yeah, I'd probably keep this, like turn one tower expedition map, and then turn two, you can either pyroclasm or pop the map for another Tron piece. Seems like a decent place to be.
Do you like map over turn one Stirrings to try to find the threat?
Um, you have to find the Tron pieces first anyway, don't you?
That's true. That's probably the best thing to do there.
I mean, you could turn one sphere if you wanted, though that's not as sure a thing.
Yeah, that's a little slower of a draw. And with him being on the play, you're not going to see an extra card before you get to make that first decision.
Okay, so Tron is keeping. Um, we'll see what happens on the Merfolk side. And we have tank on Merfolk.
Yeah,
And it's a Mo.
about as expected. Looking at the 6, it's very slow.
Well, you you have to keep this, I think. You at least have something that's playable.
Yeah, you have to keep it, and you have two mana cards to start a clock.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to run into a Pyroclasm. And he
Yes.
has kept on top. Decided to keep a vial. So that's going to get him going.
Yeah, a Vial's gonna help out this hand, although it's still gonna be slow.
All right, so now we are starting. And Tron is indeed playing the tower.
So I expect to see the map here.
Yeah, and here's the map before passing the turn. And on the other side, we have an island into that vial that we knew was
Ooh,
there.
Oblivion Stone.
Draw is an Oblivion Stone.
With Sen's
So,
clock being as slow as it is, that seems like it's going to be very useful.
and we're seeing Grove and Stirrings. So look at the top 5.
I assume he's playing the stirrings here in order to find, yeah, a Tron piece.
And he finds a power plant, yes. So
Without
that'll go to hand.
without having drawn the second Urza piece for his turn, cracking the map won't help with getting Tron online quickly enough. So the stirrings makes a lot of sense here.
Right. So we are putting putting the cards on bottom, power plant to hand, and passing the turn. Oh, we're going to play that Chromatic Sphere as well. That makes sense. Just get it out for the same amount of mana.
Yeah, you're going to want to draw the card at some point, probably pretty quickly here, to see what you want to grab with a map.
Yeah, it's curve considerations. You might as well use the extra mana.
Exactly.
So upkeep, time to take up the vial. And draw is another Harbinger. This could be interesting depending on the draw that he's facing. Like if it was a Wormcoil Engine, you could just repeatedly bounce it off of either vial.
Yeah,
We're going to see Island, and what do you play out here?
I expect to see the Harbinger first, because then you can play Harbinger Lord off of the Vial the next turn, and your clock's a little faster.
Right. Then you're suddenly attacking for a lot. Yeah. All right, so we do see the Harbinger. Pass back, and draw is a Chromatic Star.
We probably won't see a Pyroclasm on one threat here,
Yeah, that seems a little hasty.
particularly with an Oblivion Stone in hand. It's probably not that necessary. You can clean up the
Yeah,
first bit and with the Pyroclasm, and then the second rush of Merfolk with the Oblivion Stone.
Power plant on the table. He probably also wants to crack the map here rather than do anything else. So he's just going to pass the turn back.
Vial should go up to 2
Untap.
here.
Vial should go up, and it does. And draws another Lord. This is very good. This is exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, if you Lord here and then Vial in another Lord, everything is now out of Pyroclasm range.
And Pyroclasm is not an instant, so this is going to work out really nicely.
The problem
So we see the first Lord.
the problem that we run into there is uh you can expedition map for the third Tron piece and then Oblivion Stone and crack it right away, and that takes away all of Sens' board here.
Oh, wow. True. So we're moving to attack phase. And moves to attacks. Attack with Harbinger. This is an attack for 3.
Yes. We'll probably see a Vilden Lord to make it 4, I would expect, if he wants to increase the clock.
Depends. I mean, there's open deck lists, so he might be thinking there's a Pyroclasm over there, and maybe he can just trap it. But it kind of works either way. It doesn't really matter when you vial in the Lord; it's still going to stop it.
That's true. The other option is save the Lord for the end of Kdowns' turn to answer whatever he's going to cast. But
Mm-hmm.
with Oblivion Stone hanging out, he can save the Oblivion Stone for whenever he feels most threatened.
Right. So he'll take 3. Kdowns down to 17, and he'll get the turn back. So end of turn, crack the expedition map.
This will get mine.
Yeah. Well, the one thing he might be thinking here with the vial is um, that doesn't actually matter. He might be thinking, oh, maybe the threat is a worm coil engine. I want to have up my harbinger for that, but it wouldn't actually matter here.
Yeah, it's never going to be tapped.
Right. Draws a second Ulamog. Or at least it's not going to be tapped on this turnaround.
Right.
So play is the mine. Here comes the bad news.
At this point, as the Merfolk player, I would just keep the board as is and make him crack that later before adding more to the board.
Absolutely. I would not be adding something with the bile. I would not be going into this. There is absolutely no reason to suicide Lord of Atlantis here. I mean, he vows it in return, but that's just, there's no reason for that. There is an option to vial it up. He decides to turn on the Regery, and then draws another Lord. Uh,
Should
does he
definitely
not
attack
realize?
here before adding more to the board and see whether Kdowns is going to blow the Oblivion Stone right now.
Does he just not realize that that Oblivion Stone is live?
That's possible. It's also possible he just wants to force Kdowns to crack it now, so he added one more threat to the board to make it a quicker clock and force it immediately.
But you only have so many. Well, I guess if you have 4 Merfolk in hand. The problem is that that lord was valuable in holding off a pyroclasm. There's more pyroclasms than there are Oblivion Stones.
True. But Master plus Regery does the same job. And with the Violet 3, you can just play those this turn.
Right. He's lucky he drew the master. Like, he didn't know he was going to draw that.
Right, but he does have several other lords.
Yeah, I guess when you're playing a deck that's entirely lords. All right, so Sens is in the tank here. We are probably going to see an attack fairly soon, uh, which would be an attack for 10.
I think an attack for 10 would cause Kdowns to be worried enough to crack the Oblivion Stone right away. He wants to stay at as high life as possible for as long as possible against a deck like this where a bunch of damage can come out of nowhere.
Yeah, the Oblivion Stone is kind of scary in some ways. Now, the one problem, of course, is that the Oblivion Stone does clear away the vial.
Yes,
So you can't slip the Regery onto the table and have it stick around.
that is true.
All right, here's the attack. So he's checking how much it is for. And he's actually just going to take the 10. Maybe trying to bait something else out.
Possibly.
All right, turn gets passed back.
Yeah, here comes the Oblivion Stone.
Here goes the world. Now, one thing he could have done here is actually crack the sphere while doing it. It wouldn't have changed the amount of mana on the table, but it would have drawn him an extra card.
True. Which is very valuable while he's looking for another tower, for instance, for Ulamog.
Or another threat.
Right. And he is going to lose the sphere
To the stone. Yeah,
to the
that's why you'd want to
stone.
crack it
Oh,
first.
there's an
But
Ugin.
it's going to work out. Here comes one of the best cards. Here is Ugin, the Spirit Dragon.
I'm not sure that Ugin onto an empty board is actually beatable by the Merfolk player here.
Yeah, you'd want to have something like a vial in order to beat this, but that's just not an option.
Yeah, and with 2 lands, he can only play out a threat at a time, which can just get gunned down by Ugin every turn.
So 3 damage going up top, that will drop Sens down to 18. Kdowns is at what looks to be an increasingly safe 7. Turn passes back. It's a Silver Gill Adept. This is not terrible.
Draws him an extra card, but is still going to be allowing him to only play a threat a turn.
Right. I mean, I don't know how he gets out of this. One of the few ways to do it would be to try to get up to Master of Waves and then hope he has to expend a bunch of loyalty in order to get that off the table with the tokens. But
I mean, all you have to do is -4 at that point.
yeah, Ugin may already just be at too high a loyalty. So, well, we get a Mutavault. That's actually one of the few ways that this could turn around, given enough time.
It's very slow, but Kdowns does not have any real ways to interact with that.
Well, here's one. Draw is Karn. So Ugin will shoot down the Silvergill Adept.
And Ugin plus
Here
Karn
comes the Karn
is
Father.
completely unbeatable here, I think.
Yeah, you just exiled the Mutavault, and then there's just nothing that can be done.
I mean, you can play a second Mutavault, but even then, Karn can just minus and take care of that again.
Right, playing a second Mutavault immediately would you'd probably be okay. You'd just go up first. Mutavault is not a fast clock,
Very true. Yep, and that induces the
and that
scoop
is
from
the scoop.
Sens, who does not want to play against Ugin plus Karn, and I don't blame him.
All right, so we are going to sideboarding. Looking at first the Merfolk sideboard, what do you think is going to happen over there?
The Vapor Snags probably stay in to deal with Wormcoil Engine if that's the threat. Um, I don't see much of anything though that Sens would want to bring in. Unified Will is probably very reasonable. It counters everything he wants to because he's going to have more creatures out. And maybe take
Yeah,
out the
that's
Master of Waves because they're on the slower side in the matchup.
yeah, that would make sense. This just does not look like a sideboard that is considering Tron, but for the most part, you don't have to if you're Merfolk, if you get a decent draw. What do you think is going to happen over there on the Tron side?
Probably not a whole lot. The Torpor Orb is a consideration, although it only really hits the Master of Waves and the Silvergill Adept. Thragtusk is a reasonable way to gain life and is a big body that, if he hasn't been spreading seized, can block the Merfolk very well.
Yeah, it's not a huge amount over there as well.
Yeah,
So
he
we
wants to
are
keep
seeing,
he wants to keep most of these cards to have his consistency of getting to Tron, and basically all his cards are good threats. Maybe take out an Ulamog to speed things up a little bit.
yeah, sure, that would make sense. So both players are still in the middle of sideboarding, working out what they want. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time with Octagon. It's one of the play module looks great, but you actually have to drag things back and forth manually between the sideboard and the library, and sometimes a hand if you want to rest things there while moving things back and forth. So it can take a little bit longer than sometimes it might otherwise.
True. Also, with the sideboard pieces being of questionable use for some of them, it's possible that they're just spending a lot of time trying to figure out what changes they want to make.
Yeah, and actually, some of it could be masking as well. So we saw Sens, for example, pull the spreading seas into his hand and then just put them back into his deck, which may be trying to signal, hey, I'm looking at more cards switching in and out than I actually am. I'm not sure how you would get um, confused by this if you were across the table, just because deck lists are open and Kdowns can see perfectly well that there isn't a lot across on the other side of the table that matters.
Well, maybe your opponent will outthink themselves.
It's been known to happen. All right, so Kdowns is he finished, or did he just randomly pull things into his hand? I think he's just randomly drawn up. Let me just check. Yeah. Okay, so the actual sideboarding over here for the Tron player, we have coming out was a chromatic star, a chromatic sphere, and three ancient stirrings. This is sort of surprising to me.
The stirrings coming out is
Going,
a surprise because they can find him what he needs as opposed to having to hope that he draws what he wants off the top of his deck.
yeah, going in, Thrag Tusks. We saw that coming, and three Nature's Claim.
I guess he's a bit scared of the ether vials since he needs to find more specific answers in order to answer those. He needs I guess most of his threats answer them except for Ugin, but it can do some tricky
Seems
things and maybe he
weird.
just doesn't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah, across, coming out, the Vapor Sags and the two Kira came out against Tron. Going in, I see two Dispels and looks like the two Tidebinder. Oh no, those are still there. The two Unified Wills. Two Unified Wills and some Dispels. Tidebinder mages are still over there on the sideboard.
Yeah, the dispels are an interesting choice. Aren't they completely dead? Is there anything in Tron that's an instant?
And hold on a second. One gut shot. One gut shot went in.
I guess it's a reasonable point of damage on whatever he might need it on. Gives him an extra point to take care of a planeswalker if he needs to attack that, or gives him a little bit of extra reach if he needs one more point to finish off Kdowns.
Yeah, I mean, Unified Wills were the clear ones that had to go in, and I could see why he wanted the Vapor Snags out. Um, it was difficult. It was tricky. So draws. SensFan this time will be going first. Tron player is drawn up. We have an Urza's Mine, a bunch of Sphere and Star effects, a Karn and Ulamog, and an Ugin. What do you think about this?
He can draw an extra card with the chromatic effect several times, but with only one land, it seems very risky to try to hope for that when you're only drawing extra cards and not playing expedition maps.
And you're also drawing them a turn slow. You only have one land. On the
Exactly.
other hand, Merfolk has Mutavaults, two islands, Curse Catchers, Reesjury, a Silver Gull Adept, and that Singleton Gutshot.
The gut shot feels like a it feels like you're already down a card having it this early because there's not anything you're going to want to hit. But everything else in that hand looks very good. He can curve out with Curse Catcher, Adept, Regery, and even has a Mutavault for extra pressure early. The only problem
Yeah,
is there's no disruption except Curse Catcher on a Pyroclasm, possibly.
that might be good enough. I think you keep this.
I would
It
keep it as
does
well.
something. Yeah.
I think you just want to make sure you have creatures going up the curve.
Yeah, and this does. And especially having that one drop, there's only curse catchers that Merfolk has as a one drop. And that makes a difference once you start piling words onto it, getting that early damage. But we're going to
Absolutely.
see a mulligan here. And, well, he found the prize. There's a spreading seas in this hand, as well as enough lands to operate, a Regery, and a Silver Gill Adept.
Yeah, this is basically the same hand, but replacing the gut shot with a spreading seas and going down a card, um, the curse catcher. But it looks just as fine as the other hand.
Kdowns is going to mulligan the hard way. I mean, he's going to be happy he did, because if he had kept that hand, he would have just gotten seized on the mine and been out of it very quickly. 6-card hand is a forest, 2 maps, and some high-end stuff, Oblivion Stone, Ugin, and Karn.
This is better. With the scry, I'd be very tempted to keep it, looking for that second land to turn on your expedition maps and get to your threats pretty quickly. But without a Tron piece there at all, it's going to be still very slow.
Yeah, he might be stuck with it, but
I'm not sure a 5 is
it's
going to be
tough
better
to
in this
say.
matchup.
Yeah, I don't know either. So Sens is keeping 6. Kdowns is trying to figure out. And he is actually going to send this back. And here's a 5. Sanctum of Ugin, Power Plant, Sylvan Scrying, and Oblivion Stone. This is just a hot mess.
No green, but if you get the green, you can get to Tron and an Oblivion Stone and hope that's good enough.
I don't think he can go down any farther.
I don't think so either.
He's going to be very sad, though, when when his power plant suddenly sinks into the ocean. Yep, he's keeping 5.
Can't be happy about it, but
So, Scry for the Merfolk player. It was a curse catcher which he sent to the bottom, actually. I guess he's thinking that since he's on the play, that's just going to end up being too far off curve.
agreed.
Kdowns, on the other hand, has kept it. And the card that he has kept is a tower.
All right, he's still going to be sad about the spreading seas, but
Yeah. Well, we're going. Island go.
there's the tower that he scried to the top. Do you consider, I guess you don't think about starting on Sanctum since you want to try to get Tron here.
No, he's just going to play the tower. This makes the most sense. Draws a unified will. Now, there is an option. Either you take him out right away, or you think, I've got time. Let's adapt.
I would get a threat out early because he's still 2 pieces away from Tron here.
And that's what's going to happen. Adapt showing the Regery, and that will draw a card, which is a Harbinger of the Tides.
He just wants creatures at this point, I think.
Yep. And the draw is a star for Kdowns.
That's a good draw. It gives him the green mana for his Sylvan Scryings.
Sylvan Scryings. This is good. So I'll cast it. Pass the turn back. And he's going to end up quite a bit farther behind than he expected. And that's a really nice draw in either vial, because now he's going to be able to do everything.
Yeah,
Use
Seize
all of
plus
his mana
Vial
this
lets him
turn.
use his mana very nicely.
Attack with Adept. That'll drop Kdowns down to 18. And the question is, what do you seize here?
I always like seizing the tower, because it's just more mana once you do get Tron later.
Yeah, I've seen for some reason people think you want to not seize the tower because they always have a second tower, but they never have a second power plant, which is weird. It shouldn't matter one way or the other. Here's the vial.
Just one of those weird superstitious things Magic players do, I guess.
Yeah, and here's the bad news. That is going on the tower.
Yep, gonna slow down Kdowns pretty significantly there. And another Mutavault. His clock is just speeding up really quickly here.
Yeah, the one good thing as he draws a map is he will be able to get Tron online pretty quickly. The bad news is how long it takes to do this, and also that the only thing he has in hand in terms of what he's drawing to is an Oblivion Stone. So he'll crack, uh, draw from the star is a Grove of the Burnrose, cast is a Sylvan Scrying. This is going to fetch another Tron piece. It's a mine. That will be the play. And probably the map here.
Yeah, we'll see the map
Yeah.
to just let him go find another tower next turn.
And we're going to pass back. If he remembers, we'll see a up, miss the vial, draws a unified will. And he just realized it.
I think we'll just let the opponent make that decision here, since it is a May.
So while they're figuring that out, and we get this fixed, all right, so we're going to add the counter. There's an interesting option here, which is he could just play a Mutavault and activate Mutavault, attack, and just leave 2 mana open for Unified Will. That won't really stop Tron, is the problem.
Right, since he can just crack the expedition map.
Yeah,
But it looks
but
like we
he's
may
going to
see
do
that
it. Oh, he might
too.
also just play the Harbinger.
That's also a possibility. It depends on how aggressive he wants to get versus whether he thinks Kdowns can play a significant enough threat here.
We're just going to see a passing of the turn. Looks like he wants the Unified Will set up. He's probably thinking that Tron is coming, and he just wants to stop whatever it's going to find.
I mean, he sees the expedition map. He knows it's coming.
Yeah, so there's going to be 5 mana available. Now, the good news is that, okay, crack it, find a tower, play Oblivion Stone, that would get countered.
Yes, and that's the one threat that he could have cast with the 5 mana, and it's one that Sens is very worried about here.
The problem is what else might be drawn. Now, he drew an Ulamog, which is still a little ways off. But if he draws something else, all right, so Crack finds the tower, plays the tower. Here comes the attempt at an Oblivion Stone, and that is not going to make it. All right, so that is it for what the Tron player is going to be doing. Pass back. Hopefully we remember this time. The counter, yep, goes up to 2, and draw is a third Mutavault. This is actually pretty good. He can drop the Mutavault, drop Lord, and still attack with a Mutavault.
Or leave up Unified Will if he wants to keep doing that, as he can still Violin Harbinger for more threats next turn.
Right. And that's what it looks like we're going to see. Attack for 3.
Yeah, with Tron up, you've got to be scared of an Ugin here. And if Unified Will is your only answer to it, then you need to leave that up here and just try to get in a few points of damage less than you could have.
Yeah, and he'll at least be able to drop Harbinger of the Tides at his end of turn no matter what.
Which ends up at 3
Well,
6.
Kdowns is now at 11.
3 6 8 10.
Draws an Ancient
That does leave him
Stirrings.
with lethal if he counters a big threat here.
Right, because he's got a pile of Mutavaults. So here's an Ancient Stirrings. He's already played the land. So he's got 8 mana up. He cannot Ugin. As Sens will go up to 21 from that grove. He can't Ugin, or sorry, he can't Ulamog. He could try for anything else, but that's just going to get countered, and that's probably going to be the game.
Yes. Whatever big threat he finds off of this Stirrings is just going to get countered, and then there's enough damage on the swing back for lethal.
So this is a bit more like what we would have expected to happen in this matchup.
Yeah. Enough threats backed up by enough disruption and a quick enough clock to finish it before the big threats start coming down.
So off the Ancient Stirrings, we are going to find a Looks like this is a bit of a tough decision. Worm coil engine. And that is just not going to happen. So a little bit of confusion, just because you have to show the card. Kdowns was trying to shortcut it as showing the card and casting it, but now that that's worked out that it's actually being cast, we'll see a unified will on that. As that worm coil engine gets what it deserves for being the wrong art. And then Harbinger is going to come in,
And then we should see a couple
untap.
Mutavaults be activated here.
Well, he has to decide what to do on upkeep. We're just going to see a scoop. Okay, we don't even get to see the draw. Kdowns has worked out the math. Sens would have been able to attack for 14 easily, no matter what the draw was.
Yes.
So going back to sideboards, you expect to see anything change?
I don't. Looking at Tron, the changes are about what we expected, although the stirrings out is still a little odd. Um, but one possible use for the Nature's Claim we hadn't considered was claiming his own spheres and stars for some additional life to try to get another turn to find his threats. He doesn't have to be claiming the vials.
True, and if you claim a star, you at least get the draw still. Although Tron's a little hard up for color sometimes. This might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I have trouble believing it's better than Stirrings here, but I can see the reasoning for it if he thinks that it has the flexibility of hitting vials or anything of his own, or spreading seas even.
So we are seeing the gut shot move its way back into the board, as did the dispels, because those were not great. And moving back into the main deck, were some Vapor Sags.
Probably more useful than the dispels. They answer Worm Coil Engine
Yeah,
very
Dispel doesn't
cleanly.
actually hit anything.
Exactly.
And on the other side, I don't believe we saw any changes happening in the
No,
Tron
no
deck.
changes. So I think the players are going to draw up now.
Yeah, so we see 7 for the Tron player. This just has no lands. There's no
Yeah,
reason to look
can't
any
keep no
further than
lands
that.
there.
That's bad. Moving over to Sens with Merfolk. 2 Allens, 2 Silver Gulladets, Master of the Pearl Trident, Mirror Regery, and a Master of Waves.
It's a hand that's weak to Pyroclasm, at least for the moment, but I think you have to keep it.
Yeah, it at least gets somewhere, and you get 2 extra draw steps out of it.
Exactly.
So we see the mulligan from Kdowns, which had to happen. 2 Tron pieces, Star, and the big stuff, Wormcoil, Engine, Karn, and Ulamog.
That's a borderline hand with no
Think you gotta keep it.
clear way to get the third Tron piece. It's a little risky, but I'm not sure a 5 is going to be better. You have a scry, you have a star to dig a little deeper trying to find it, or a way to get it.
And you also have two of the three Tron pieces already in hand.
Exactly. With two of them already there and only needing to find the tower, there's a little less risk than having to find two pieces.
Yeah. So we see a keep over with Merfolk, and we see a keep on this 6-card hand. So the scry
What cards do you keep here? Probably Expedition Map, Tower. Do you keep a chromatic effect?
you'd keep a Sylvan scrying anyway, as
You,
well, because you have
yes.
the way to get the green. He does decide to keep. It was a tower. He just naturally has the Tron.
Yep, and with no spreading seas yet, he may get to it also.
Yeah. Power plant, star, pass. There's a vapor snag. That's actually going to matter a touch, depending on what happens on the other side.
Yeah, it depends
Does
on
Island
what
go?
threat Kdowns starts with. If he starts with Worm Coil, the Vapor Snag will slow him down a bit. If he starts with Karn,
It does nothing.
it doesn't
This
really help.
is mine, as the draw was the tower we knew about. There's nothing to be done here. As you ask back, it's an island.
That's an important third island for Reejery, but Sens is not going
Yeah,
to be happy seeing the natural turn 3 Tron here.
yeah. And he drew a curse catcher. That could have maybe made, well, not really. That doesn't stop planeswalkers. Comes from a time before those existed. Here's a natural Tron. And for my best trick, oh, he actually just dropped a Wormcoil Engine.
A creature to deal with a creature, I guess.
Yeah, but Karn could have just gotten rid of it as well.
Yeah,
Here's a
I
Unified Will.
I tend to prefer Karn to clear up the board as well, since you can follow up with the Worm Coil later and start disruption with Karn pluses.
Is there a way through this? Like you Vapor Snag, attack, hold up Unified Will, and hope?
You're going to have to dodge probably several threats in a row if you want to slow down that much.
Yeah, like you're praying there's nothing else over there. But down to 17. And he's just going to hold up that Unified Will and hope that gets him out of this. The
Understandable,
problem
but it's
is
very
that
slow.
this land means an Ugin is possible. Now, if Kdowns is thinking here, he might just drop the Wormcoil Engine again, and he is, because that looked very much like a Unified Will across the table.
Yeah, and Worm Coil is probably your most replaceable threat in this instance. Ugin answers
Yeah,
everything very quickly. If you get up to Ulamog, that does everything.
yeah, you do not want Ugin to get countered. What just happened here with mana?
I think we had an accidental untap of the tower there.
Okay, that would make sense. We're cycling through some things. Um, let's make sure that we get our mana right. So it looks like what happened was the tower got tapped for 3. One of that was used to cycle through a sphere, uh, which left 3. Then one was used to cast a sphere, another one used to cycle through a sphere. That drew the Pyroclasm, still had 2 mana, which is why he can Pyroclasm. Uh, we're working out that.
All right, looks like he's fixing a little visual bug here. It looked tapped for him, but
Okay, there we go. And Pyroclasm clears away the Silvergill Adept. That was necessary.
I mean, it's not necessary to cast it there, but you've got the mana, and you're going to be using all your mana the next couple turns anyway.
Yeah, it's not terrible. Here comes the Silvergill Adept, revealing a Curse Catcher, which is weird since that's probably not what's going to be cast right now. The draw is a Lord of Atlantis. And we should be seeing a Lord here. You see the Master come down, which probably should have been the thing revealed. So this is one of the nice things about Merfolk. Suddenly there's 5 power on the table. Unfortunately, this is going to meet an Ulamog, or an Ugin.
Yeah, and it's an Ugin, which is going to stay on 5 after that to be able to answer anything else. The next turn, 1 threat, 2 threats, whatever.
Yeah, this is the card you really do not want to see. So we'll see it exile each permanent with converted mana cost 2 or less. That will clear away the other side of the board. And since he paid 9, the extra mana is going to be used on a star.
Completely understandable there.
And this is going to be hard. I mean, there's Lord, but you get to drop an extra threat. I mean, it might be just drop a Master and get 1 token out of it, which is not much, but you force him to spend 4,
You
and
do
then you
not
might
force him to spend
get him
4.
out.
Ugin is not red, so Ugin can just plus and take care of Master.
Oh, yeah, and then the Elemental would just go.
Yep.
So you need
The
extra
line
stuff
for
on the
Sens
table.
here is probably Reejerey. Now, like Reejerey Curse Catcher to add 2 threats to make Ugin -3. And then play out your 2/2s to try to make him use all of Ugin's loyalty.
Right. Although it looks like we're just going to get a scoop.
Yeah, Ugin's very hard to deal with.
It's
Trying to
going
make
to
him
be
spend
tough
all his
with Karn
loyalty
following it up.
is probably the best chance Sens has there, and that runs him basically out of threats as well.
The other problem is that the next thing to hit the table would be Karn, and Karn can just start smashing lands. So,
Right.
okay, fine. You dropped a couple threats, Ugin clears them away. Here's Karn, suddenly you're limited to 3 mana. And that's probably going to be too much.
Yes, but without knowledge of the hand, Sens that's all Sens could really do is try to make him use Ugin and hope he doesn't have more threats in his hand.
Yeah. So that's going to be the game. Tron pulls off what's probably an upset. This is a little better depending on the build for Merfolk, 2-1. That is the second win for the Tron deck, and the Merfolk deck has been having trouble. That is going to be its second loss.
Yeah, probably an upset, but probably not a big upset because we did see that play out in Tron's favor, where if there's not enough disruption and or not a fast enough clock, it just starts to take over against a board of a bunch of small creatures.
Yeah, it's probably one of those 40-60 matches at best, that kind of.
All right, but that's it for that match. Any final thoughts before we head to a break?
Not really. We just saw the Tron deck manage to get its stuff together and overpower Merfolk.
Indeed. So we're going to take a break. We may have another match a bit later, but that's it for now. Thank you for watching.